Hello all, this is Dr. Jyoti KB, Associate Professor, Government First Grade College Kupi. In this session 39 is prescribed for your essay written by William Hazlitt called Disappointment. So in this session, we are going to learn the uh, line by line explanation of this essay Disappointed, which is a very short one, which runs for about 2 pages. To start with, what are the expectations we have after you go through this session? So we expect you to learn about William Hazlitt's essay Disappointment, and we want you to understand Hazlitt as a great critic and essayist. We want you to learn Hazlitt's tone towards poetic talent, and we also want you to concentrate on his style of writing. Now, starting this essay, in this essay, Hazlitt argues against the critics who criticized on his works bitterly. So, as we all know in the previous session, first slide itself, Hazlitt has come out with a general statement about human nature, and that is human beings cannot acknowledge somebody as superior. So they do not easily accept somebody as above them. So the same thing happens to his work also. Critics are not ready to accept him as his works as something valuable, something precious. And Hazlitt is arguing why the critics are not agreeing to the merit of his works. Now he is arguing against the critics who criticized on his works bitterly. He wants the critics to concentrate on the merit in his work in an objective or matter of fact way. So he doesn't want any personal information or the amount of power, money, status, influence should influence on acknowledging him as a good writer. So he wants critics to concentrate only on the work and its value to the society. He doesn't mind the critics if they criticize him, but he is worried if they comment on the truth which is contained in his work. So he doesn't worry if somebody calls him as inefficient, but he doesn't want the truth which is kept in his work to be treated as inferior. So he wants the work to flourish, whatever might happen to his personal information. So, our personal things, he is never worried. So, we have a picture of a person who is disappointed, who doesn't have any other way except to grieve and suffer. So, this is the state in which the poet has come when nobody is ready to accept his works as worthy, as valuable, as precious. So he's completely disappointed about the way the critics have written about his work. In his essay, he talks about the reason for which he undertook the work of writing. Now he begins saying that why he took up the work of writing or why he started working as a writer. He explains that he started the work because he liked to write and he is passionate about the subjects he is writing. So he has taken up the work of writing out of passion, not of fashion or not for money. His emotions and anxiety pushed him to work on these subjects. So he has enough emotions, power, endurance, and conviction of continuing his work rather than taking it as a work of ornament. So Hazlitt defends his stand by saying, I have no intention of dishonoring them. He has done all the work dispassionately. When he liked the old writers, he has praised them, quoted them, but when the old writers are not right, he has not hesitated to criticize the old writers. At that point of time, he has criticized the writers with a lot of reluctance. So the critics have expressed displeasure at Hazlitt's treatment of old writers. So, when he wrote critics on the great dramatists of English literature, the critics were not ready to accept his opinion or comments on the old writers, including Shakespeare and Milton, because the critics felt that it is not proper on his part to dishonor the old writers. But Hazlitt argues that whatever he has done is based on the objective study, it is based on logical methodology, and he doesn't like to blame anybody or criticize anybody, but when he wants to praise the old writers, he has done it completely freely. And when he found that the old writers are not right, he has not hesitated to criticize the old writers. So he has done criticism out of reluctance. Reluctance means without any other way. So he doesn't have any other way except to criticize, because he has criticized only those parts which are irrelevant and inappropriate. On the question of commenting on the old writers, he writes, "It is no easy task. People started to scout and ridicule if he failed. The problem persists of he succeeds also because success breeds coldness and jealousy." So he says the critics are criticizing his work not just because the writing is of no merit, but because human beings are basically cold and generous people. So he writes, "You have to keep pace with the rancor of his enemies. The enmity and malice that success breeds will destroy the pleasantness success brings." Once again, the picture of a disappointed person. Hazlitt writes, "They do not like you a bit. The better for fulfilling the good opinion they always entertained of you. They would wish you to be always promising a great deal and doing nothing." Then he explains the hardships and difficulties a critic undertakes to create criticism. In spite of their hardships, he will not gain the expected popularity because, he writes, "An author wastes his time in painful study and obscure researches to gain a little breath of popularity, meets with nothing but vexation and disappointment in 99 instances out of 100." So this is common tendency where people will not accept you easily, and you will receive a bad criticism and commentary that will vex you, will disappoint you. So this will happen in 199 situation out of 100. Or when he thinks to grasp the luckless prize, finds it not worth the trouble. He thinks that the attainment of acknowledged excellence will secure him the expression of those feelings in others which the image and hope of it had excited his own breast. But instead of that, he meets with nothing. In spite of that painful work, he has received nothing, zero. He has come out with only zero result. And people are suspecting him, calling him as an idiot, and they are expressing grins at him. Grins andre sittu ಕೋಪವನ್ನು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. So that is what I have earned out of my painful research on the great English dramatist's critical work. In an endeavor towards a passionate work, the poet encounters disappointment due to lack of support and encouragement from the people around him. Yet he recovers from disgust and anxiety, and he arrives at a way to overcome all the obstacles and troubles disappointment brings about. The speaker gets ready to invest any amount of exertions and sacrifices to overcome the obstacles in the path of his goals. He writes, "A cloud is upon our onward path, and we fancy that all is sunshine beyond it. The prospect seems endless because we do not know the end of it. We think that life is long because art is so, and that because we have much to do." it is well worth doing, or that no exertions can be too great, no sacrifices too painful to overcome the difficulties we have to encounter. Life is a continued struggle to be what we are not and to do what we cannot. Then the poet talks about the feeling of satiation, demotivation, and laziness, which come as a last impediment when one starts to come near one's goals. And then that can be overcome by taking a mechanically impulsive final step. So when you feel betrayed by your own goal, when you yourself do not feel like continuing your own goal, then the poet wants the doer to take an impulsive action, a strong action, though his emotions, feelings, and his inner self says no. So, in such situation, the speaker wants the doer to take a strong, emotional, forceful step to complete the goal. He writes, "We stagger on the few remaining paces at the end of our journey." So, it is common that we stammer and stagger, but we have to make one final effort and are glad when our task is done. So if we do that demotivated action, though you feel demotivated, you should not be carried away by that negative feeling. So you should impulsively, voluntarily drag your faculties, your mind, your brain, your energies, and complete that final task, then you feel the pleasure out of it. So that such situation, demotivated by your own self, is common. So people should not be taken away, should not feel um, reduced, do not feel disappointed at that point of time. So with these kind of messages, he completes his essay Disappointment, which is a very short one running to only 2 pages.